I'm going to be replacing the pads and the rotors on an Audi Q5 2017. Just make sure you get the exact version. And then there's some, like this one has some procedures about after you put them in, but you can work on that. So you can even go down to like the trim line. So just get, like I said, the exact one. Just take a look at it. This one has retaining clips. Luckily, this one has all 4 pads are the same, no matter which side, inside, outside, passenger, driver. So this makes it a little bit easier. Sometimes you have to track that, though. Like I said, this was a kit. They'll probably be okay. Fell on the ground, but it came with the rotors and the pad. So, and I'm just going to kind of step through some of the tools I use. It had a wear sensor as well, so make sure you can replace that if you need to. Most times, it's just best to do it. Here's some of the tools you probably need. Just some rags to clean up. I'm going to be using compressed air a lot. Just be careful because that brake dust. Multiple different sizes of nuts to take off, gloves to keep your hands. I got a torque wrench there. There's usually rust on the where the rotor meets it, so I'd have that. So I got a couple different tools. I use the screwdrivers to compress the piston. I'm going to be changing the rotor, so I could do that. Don't worry. I definitely want brake cleaner fluid. That's just good for cleaning up all the different surfaces. And I'm not going to go through it as much, but you want some extra brake fluid because when you bleed the brakes. And so this is, like I said, I'll show the different parts that I use. So this is the reservoir when the brake fluid comes out, when you bleed into there. This is the compression part that hooks to the master cylinder. It's called the power bleeder. You can do it with 2 people. Just press it. I've actually seen people not bleed the brakes. I prefer to do that. This one has, I have a couple different cars, so each one has the special size that fits onto the master cylinder. So just go make sure your master cylinder where where it is. Take a look at it. Make sure look at the level, especially when you're pressing the pistons in or compressing or pulling them out. The fluid level could change, and you don't want it to overflow. So make sure it's not too high, and just keep watch on it. And don't get anything in there. You don't want to contaminate it. And most of all, be safe. I always put on my emergency brake. Except if you're doing the back wheels, it's a little bit different, but I like to put that on. And then sometimes, just get a little visual inspection here before you get the wheel off, kind of get an understanding of what you're, looking at, what you're going to be doing. I like to test just to make sure where I put the jack, it's going to be in the right place. I'm doing just the front, so it's not as bad, but I'm still going to chalk the back. Emergency brakes on. I use jack stands to hold it up, and I usually like to keep the jack in place, not taking all the weight, but just to, as a safety precaution. You can see I'm replacing the rotors here. The dealer was going to do it, said it was $2,000 just to do the front, so I just got the parts for like $200. I'm going to do it myself. So just take off the lugs here, however you want to do it. Look, I got a pneumatic gun here. Helps if it's on reverse and you're not tightening. I'll give some of the sounds. Look always good. Just a fun sound, like the whirring impact wrench. So I get those off, and then I jack up the car just like you would normally. I said this is kind of my setup, that all the weight's on the jack, but the jack stands. The jack is still holding, has a little bit there, and I always like to put the wheel under there just as a second precaution. So just kind of look through here. This is the wear sensor, comes in here. There's a retaining clip that holds it, keeps in the compression, and then there's the pin that goes through. That's what holds it, and it's just a friction fit in there. So those pins are the ones that need to come out as the beginning. This one, luckily, you don't have to. They can go in place. The pads can be replaced without having to take much off. I'm replacing the rotor, so I'm gonna have to take the caliper off anyways. But there's really only 2 clips. It's not that one with a star shape. It's just those 2 larger ones that are the ones that you take off if you're taking the caliper off. There's other ones actually hold the calipers together, so you don't want to do those. You just want to use those big ones. And then the first is to get off that wear sensor. It's a little tight in here, but there's just a clip that goes on the top that fits into that hole, and once you pull that retaining clip out, it just twists 90 degrees like this, and then it slides out, and that's what releases that clip, and then you can detach it. So I just use a punch here just to push those clips out. Don't pull them out all the way because that retaining clip on the top is under tension, so I just started off just to release it from that compression fitting it's in, and then just kind of start cleaning off. And always be careful with brake dust. It's very hazardous, so have a mask on. I like to kind of blow it and then walk away for a little bit, let it all kind of settle. I end up doing it a couple times. But so you can just pull this pin out after you've released it. I'm holding with one hand, holding that clip under tension just so it doesn't spring out. It's actually holding on the bottom, but it's just best just to do this. It's like I said, it's not too bad, but it's under enough where you just gotta kind of press it and kind of wiggle the clip to get it out. But be careful that wear sensor is still there. But once I get the pin out, just take a look at it quickly, make sure it's not rusted. I'll do a little better inspection towards the end. But then this is removing the wear sensor, so it's on each side, but it's only on the driver's side. So I'm just going to show, this video is just going to be showing the driver's side, because the passenger side is the exact same way. But you just take this out, and then that'll release the pads, and then you can just, so I'm using a screwdriver here just to kind of compress the piston. If you were keeping the rotor, you probably don't want to be as rough as I'm being here, but I'm compressing them enough so that they can clear as they come out. And then the new ones, which are much thicker, will have enough room to go in. But they're really loose in there, so they should come out really easy. Luckily, like I said, as I mentioned, these are the same inside, outside. Otherwise, I would just, for your version, I would just double check, make sure they're the same. So you can see it has the same slot on both sides, so it doesn't matter which side you put it in. And then again, I'm replacing the rotor here. So there's those two bolts on the back. It's kind of hard showing in there just because it's kind of tight, and those things are pretty tight. But it's easier to take the bottom one off first. This is what it looks like, and then take the top one off while you're holding it, because that's going to drop, and you don't want the brake line to go under tension. So you can see I'm holding it with one hand, and then I've got this S-clip that I'm going to hook up onto the spring and just use that. So once I get the caliper off, it's just going to hang under there so that brake line's not under any tension. It's out of the way, because I'm going to be doing a lot of banging trying to get this rotor off. So you can see here, once you get it off, you can see this has dual pistons on it. Just this version and this trim line of this Q5. So that's how the bolt goes through. So it just hang it up on there, get it out of the way. Make sure it's secure, not just dangling there delicately. You can see the brake line's not twisted or bent or anything. So it's a good place there. And so next thing you want to do is get the rotor off. And you may want to just hit it, but this one is, I found out, has a single screw there that actually is holding it in place. It's not real tight or any on there real strong, but it's enough that rotor is not going to come off. So just take that off first, and then you can start banging it. I always start off kind of light, and then especially if you haven't changed the brakes in a while, or taken off the rotor, you have to bang this thing pretty hard. You can see it's rusted on that collar right there. So some WD-40 sometimes helps. And then just a lot of banging. And as you see this video, I've sped it up. As it goes up, you'll see more and more marks on that rotor to show how many times I had to hit this thing. I finally got it loose, so you'll see it fall. So just be careful. It can fall off and hurt you. So it's just enough. You'll see you can see there's a lot of rust right on the collar there. So I kind of like using this brake fluid cleaner. It seems to help, kind of loosening it a little bit. But really just getting a wire brush in there and just breaking it up, trying to get it as loose as possible. It takes a little bit of elbow grease. It's not too bad. I just want this to be clean so that when the next rotor goes on, it goes on a lot easier. Make sure you can set it straight. I switched to a little smaller wire brush to make sure I get in the corners there and just kind of clean it off. Make sure it's most of the rust is off there. Again, use some compressed air. Again, be safe. This is going to send brake fluid or brake dust everywhere, which can get in your lungs and is very hazardous. So once you get that off, cleaned up, the rotor goes back on. So it's pretty simple here. I like to clean it off just to make sure that get off any of the oil or any manufacturing leftovers on there, so that it's clean, that doesn't get transferred to the pads. You can do this on the ground, but I like just happen to have it up like this. So make sure, like I said, if this one has a screw, or if they put that on, line it up. That screw doesn't go on really tight, but it's just enough just to hold it on. Like I said, I kind of hand tighten it first, and then put the ratchet up there. Just tighten it just enough. The lugs are actually, and the wheel are actually going to hold that in place, but it's just enough to keep it flat against the surface so that it's correct. Just make sure, again, clean. And then I'm going to clean off the calipers next. Probably should have done this before I cleaned off that rotor. But this is why I forgot about it. So get in there, get as much as you can. I don't think this is really essential. Be careful of the pistons because they have a rubber boot on them. You don't want to be putting the wire brush across that. And it's hard to see, because some of it's kind of dirty. It's not just black there, so just be careful of that. But I'm, again, just cleaning this up so that when the pads go in, they're not stuck on anything. This makes a huge mess. Again, very careful with this brake fluid or brake dust. So I'm just going to get the pins and then give them a better inspection right now. Just clean them off with the brush, and then I'm going to use some brake fluid cleaner. Just look at that compression piece on the top. Just clean them off again. Just make sure they're not rusted, pitted, anything where they're reusable. My kit did not come with a replacement for this, so I'm just going to just use the existing ones because they're really in good shape. So here's just putting the caliper back on. Just again, there's just 2 bolts on there. It's pretty easy. I should have put the top one, a little bit easier, but just get it on there. And then you're going to use a torque wrench to put it on. This one, I think it was like 114 it was set to, but you could just check your manufacturer settings, so what it says to use on there, and then tighten it to that spec. And then these pads go on, so you can see this one has a little slot in it. That's where that wear sensor, the cable, goes through. Luckily, these are interchangeable, which the inside outside it's exactly the same. So depending on which car you're doing, it may not be. But these for this should go in pretty loose. They're sticking a little bit, and it was especially on that the inside. Try to touch it a little bit. I played with it, went back and forth a little bit. What I found out was there was extra paint. Well, actually, this one it was hitting the caliper, and I had to put it back, the old one back in there, and compress it a little bit better. But then then I was able to kind of tap it in here. You can see I'm doing it real lightly. Don't force it in there. But what it was is, if you can see that wear on the side, there was just extra paint on there, or just not exactly to specs. But it was decent. So I said once I moved it in a little bit and out, the paint got off there, and then it's pretty loose. And did the same thing to the outer one. You can see now it's sliding in and out with almost no force, just fingertip able to pull it out. So anywhere where the metal rubs, you want to put some grease on there. I kind of go overboard maybe, but I just don't want any squeaks and have to pull it all off and do it again. So both sides where it's touching the caliper, and then I like to do it in the back here where the piston. Again, this is probably unnecessary, but I got enough of this grease there. I just put it on there, make sure that there's no problems. So I'm just using the punch here to kind of line it up, so the pin goes through the outside of the caliper, through those pads, and then through that little the clip on the top there. So it's easier just to put the top one in there, or put it in the top, and then compress it when you do the next one. Now again, I'm just using a punch in there, trying to get that pad lined up so that the pin will come all the way through. So don't force anything. I'm just tapping this lightly just to kind of get it lined up. And then I'm going to put some grease here again where there's any metal to metal contact. And if you notice where the pin came through, it's all the way through, and it's level with the surface. That's it's under the correct. It's pushed all the way in correctly, and it's a tension fit in there. You'll see as I get this bottom one in again. This one's a little harder because that clip is under tension, and you're trying to get it lined up exactly, and it's going through several holes. It's not bad. I'm just trying not to force it anyway, just kind of loosely get it through there. And then it's got to go again through the other pad, and then I'm just gonna kind of lightly tap it in just to get it seated, the beginning seated. And you notice it's not protruding through there like the other one, so that one's actually not set yet, or I don't have it all lined up here. But just make sure both of those pins are completely set. So that they're again under tension in there, and that they're holding it in place. You see I'm just again lightly tapping it just to start it off, just to make sure it's correct. You can see the difference again with the top one set all the way. And so now, like I said, I'm not going to talk about bleeding as much, but this is how you do it. You're gonna pressurize or hook this up, put the power bleeder, pressurize it, and then it's going to be pressurized at the top, so that when you open the valve at the brake pad or at the caliper, it's going to come out. And you use this reservoir with the rubber tip on there, so you don't accidentally introduce any air into the brake system. But you can see it's pressurized at the top, and so as soon as I open up the valve, that pressure is going to push out the fluid. So you want to let when it come out till it's clean. Make sure there's no air bubbles coming out. I did this a couple times. Just open it up. Go back and check the pressure, make sure it's pressurized, open it, and then you go into once you do both sides, you'll go in and then depress the brake pedal a couple times to make sure that the pads are seated against the rotor. But this is really just, this is the final part of it. Once you've got the brakes bled like this, then it'll be, you're all set. Just put the wheel back on. So just kind of show you a a close-up of it, and then putting the wear sensor on. The one I had that came, it actually had part of the plastic clip was broken, but that wasn't part of the tension part, so it's actually okay. It wasn't too bad. And then there's these little clips that sit on the top, and then the wire goes under, then that's what holds it in place. If you've ever done this before, you can see I'm putting it in backwards. I should have started on the outside, moved to the inside, because that wire that's going to clip into the electronic sensor is on the outside, and it's now too far out. And so when I realized when I went to reach it, that I had it on backwards, which was great. But anyways, it wasn't too bad. Just pull out the clip, put it back. Yep, thumbs down. And then just the reverse of the way it came in, it goes in, makes that 90-degree turn, and then the clip goes in the top, plug it back in, and you're all done. Again, put the wheel back on, everything, and then any manufacturer for the pads, like I had to wear in these, just do that. Again, do both sides. They're exactly the same except for the wear sensor, and you can save yourself a lot of money compared to the dealer. So once you get it all cleaned off, and then this part I'm just going to kind of clean off those pins as well and give them a little bit better inspection. So just get any dust, any rust off there, make sure they're not rusted. That compression piece at the top there, again, to brake fluid.